A reserved woman named Lena Brooks was cruelly mocked, soaked in soda, and pushed toward the exit doors of Vertex Strategies, a sleek firm nestled in the heart of New Harbor. Her soft protests were drowned out by the jeers of colleagues who treated her like a joke, until her billionaire husband, Dominic Walsh, walked in and turned their arrogant world upside down. That Friday, chaos erupted in the pristine, glass-paneled office as Amber Shaw, a spiteful project lead, launched a cola can across the room, drenching Lena's pale blue cardigan and splashing her keyboard. "Thought you could use a rinse, sweetheart," Amber sneered. "Wrong place for a charity case." Moments later, Eli Morgan, a smug sales agent, kicked Lena's chair with enough force to nearly knock her to the ground. Jade Lynn, an intern hungry for online attention, recorded the whole scene on her phone, shouting, "This is unreal. Say goodbye to your pride, loser." Lena stumbled backward, her face burning with humiliation. But behind her tear-brimmed eyes, a flicker of something dangerous appeared. A truth she had kept buried, something powerful enough to silence every voice in that room. Who was she really, and what storm was about to break loose? To them, she didn't belong. They saw her as a mistake, a background extra in a place where polished suits and designer pumps ruled the halls. The cruelty hadn't begun with that soda. It started in whispers. That morning, Amber had leaned over Lena's desk, eyeing her knitted sweater with contempt. "Vintage look, huh? Your grandma must be proud." A few co-workers chuckled under their breath. Lena flushed but said nothing. She didn't mention that she liked comfort, or that her style reflected her values. She just wanted to focus on her job, data analytics, her quiet refuge, and leave in peace. But Amber wasn't finished. By lunch, she'd pulled in her usual backup. Eli, with his overgelled hair and inflated ego, and Jade, always looking for viral moments. They loitered near Lena's desk, pretending to talk shop, while hurling barbed remarks her way. "Hey, Lena," Eli said loudly. "Didn't I see you panhandling on 5th this morning? Swear it was your twin." Jade snapped a photo of Lena's faded canvas bag. "#fashion from the donation bin," she murmured. Lena's fingers froze above her keyboard. She felt the heat rising to her cheeks but held her tongue. She wasn't here to argue. She loved her work, finding order in numbers, calming the storm of raw data. That's what had drawn her to this job, even if she knew she didn't match the polished intensity of Vertex Strategies. She didn't need their validation. She just needed to get through another day. The bullying had started the moment she joined, just 6 weeks out of college. At first, it was subtle. Smirks when she unpacked her homemade lunch, side eyes at her thrifted outfits. But it had grown worse. Just last week, Amber had accidentally spilled coffee all over Lena's desk, ruining an entire afternoon's work. Eli had laughed. "Guess it's back to square one, Snow White," he said. That night, Jade tweeted, something cryptic. "Some people don't know when they're out of their league." Office Chronicles. Lena knew it was about her. She saw the likes piling up from co-workers. But today was something else. It felt planned. The whispers. The looks. The waiting silence before the attack. By the middle of the afternoon, they made their next move. Amber casually walked over with a pile of paperwork and let it crash onto Lena's desk with a smug smile. "Got something really important for you," she said, voice laced with mock kindness. "Big pitch coming up tomorrow, and clearly you've got time to kill." Lena glanced at the stack. Random reports, obsolete data sheets, nothing pressing. This wasn't about workload. It was about control. "I have pending deadlines," Lena replied calmly, gently pushing the folders aside. Her tone was level, but inside, a wave of nausea churned. She hated confrontations, hated how they twisted everything she said. Amber's expression hardened. "Oh, please, don't pretend you're above it. Everyone knows you're just filling space. What's your story anyway? No friends, no flair, no guts. Did you even finish school, or did someone just take pity on you?" Eli chimed in from the side, leaning coolly on a cubicle wall. Yeah, seriously, Lena. You're like our in-house charity case. Let me guess. Living in a crummy flat with 6 roommates and a leaky ceiling? Laughter rippled through the open space. Heads turned. People watched like it was a performance. Lena's hands shook slightly under the desk, but she kept them folded, hidden. She wouldn't let them see her break. Jade lifted her phone again, this time recording a short clip. Say hi to my followers. Lena, she chirped. They're dying to see what it's like working next to someone who shops in the bargain bin. She zoomed in on Lena's worn-out shoes, laughing as she typed out a caption Lena didn't need to read to understand. The office felt tighter, the air heavy with ridicule. Lena's heart thudded, but her face remained unreadable, her emerald eyes locked on the screen. She was striking, really. Delicate jawline, long black hair pulled into a neat ponytail. But she dressed modestly, spoke softly, never tried to draw attention. Her beauty wasn't for display. It was her own. Then came the blow that cut deepest. Blake Turner, their team supervisor, walked past with a smug grin. He'd never liked Lena. Too skilled, too composed. A quiet threat to his brittle authority. Hey, Brooks, he barked. If you're not contributing, maybe take the rest of the day off. We don't need dead weight dragging the team. He tossed a wrinkled post-it on her desk. Shape up, it read, scrawled in messy ink. The room erupted in cruel laughter. Amber clapped her hands as if it was the best punchline she'd heard in weeks. Lena rose slowly, each movement measured. I'll finish what I started, she said softly. I always do. She grabbed her bag and walked to the break room, needing a moment to breathe. Behind her, Eli called out, Yeah, go have your meltdown in private, princess. The words hit hard, but she didn't flinch. She kept her head high. The break room. She leaned against the counter, hands trembling as she unlocked her phone. Her thumb hovered over a familiar contact. Dominic Walsh. She didn't want to bother him. He was constantly immersed in running Walsh Global, a corporate empire that touched everything from software to skyscrapers. Everyone in New Harbor knew his name. A billionaire, self-made, and chairman of Vertex's parent company. But to her, he was just Dom, her husband of 3 years, the man who once knelt in a quiet city garden with a ring he'd designed himself. No one at work knew about him. Not because she was ashamed, but because she was humble. She wanted to prove herself, not ride on his name. They'd met in college, back when he was just another dreamer with a vision and a notebook full of plans. Back in college, she had been the quiet, brilliant math major who helped Dominic survive statistics. Their wedding was a small, intimate affair, just family and a few close friends. At work, she still used her maiden name to avoid unnecessary attention. Dom respected that. Though he'd often tease her about being too independent for her own good. But today, she needed him. Not for revenge, but for support, for courage. She hovered over his name on her screen, then pressed call. He picked up before the first ring ended. Lena, are you all right? His voice was deep, grounding, a lifeline in the chaos. Not really, she murmured, her throat tight. It's bad today. They're cruel, Dom. I don't know how much more I can take. Where are you? His voice changed, firmer now, protective. At the office. Vertex. I'm 10 minutes away. Don't move. The line went dead before she could argue. Lena walked back to her desk, bracing herself. Amber stood waiting, arms crossed. Back already? Figured you'd run off crying by now. Eli and Jade hovered nearby, smirking as if the game hadn't ended. Blake, the team lead, watched from his glass box of an office, enjoying the unfolding drama. Lena sat down without a word, fixing her gaze on the screen. Her heartbeat quickened. She felt the pressure in the air shift, like lightning just before it strikes. 9 minutes later, the elevator chimed. Silence swept across the floor. Dominic Walsh stepped out, all 6'2" of him, a force wrapped in a tailored charcoal suit. His hair slicked back, his eyes dark with quiet rage. Every head turned. Whispers erupted. Amber's jaw slackened, her eyes darting between Lena and the man now walking toward her. Eli stopped mid-joke, stunned. Jade dropped her phone with a loud clatter. Dominic didn't glance at anyone. He walked directly to Lena's desk, his energy commanding the entire room. "Lena," he said, voice calm but sharp. "You ready to leave?" She looked up, relief washing through her. "Yes, just need a second." She began collecting her things, every motion composed, even as panic set in around her. Amber was the first to react, smiling sweetly. "Mr. Walsh." "Wow, I didn't know you'd be visiting today. I'm Amber Shaw, project lead. Can I get you anything?" She batted her lashes, completely misreading the situation. Dominic didn't respond. His eyes stayed on Lena. Then he turned slowly and scanned the room. "Who's been mistreating my wife?" The word wife dropped like a thunderclap. Amber's grin collapsed. Eli coughed, stunned. Jade froze, her hand hovering over her phone. Blake stumbled out of his office, adjusting his tie like it might save him. "Your wife?" Amber stuttered, glaring at Lena's simple outfit like it didn't make sense anymore. "Yes," Dominic said, his tone icy. "Lena Walsh, my wife, and I hear she's been treated like dirt in this place. Would anyone like to explain?" No one moved. The room was a vacuum of shame. Lena stood beside him, and for the first time, everyone really saw her. She didn't smile. She didn't boast. She simply stood there, unshaken. Blake stepped forward, sweating. "Mr. Walsh, sir, this has to be a misunderstanding. Lena's one of our valued employees." "Valued?" Dominic cut him off. "She's been mocked, belittled, buried in menial work by people too shallow to see her worth. That sound like value to you?" Amber tried to scramble for an excuse. "We didn't know. I mean, she never said—" "Does she have to?" Dominic snapped. "She's here to work, not to flash a ring, but you judged her anyway. Because she doesn't flaunt labels. Because she's not chasing clout on social media. That's your failure." Eli opened his mouth, then shut it again. Jade stared at her feet, as if her influencer dreams had shattered on the tile. Blake wiped his forehead, mumbling apologies no one believed. Dominic turned to Lena. "You want to stay here, or are we finished?" She met his eyes. Her voice was calm, but resolute. "We're finished." "Perfect." He faced the stunned room. "Here's how this ends. Amber Shaw, Eli Morgan, Jade, Lynn, Blake Turner. You're all fired. Effective immediately. Security is on the way. And don't even think about applying anywhere else in this city. My name means something, and I'll personally make sure no one forgets why you were let go." Amber's face went pale. She clutched her desk. "You can't do that." "I control the board that owns this entire firm," Dominic said, his voice ice cold. "I can do whatever I damn well want." Blake tried to salvage the moment. "Sir, I've been with this company for 5 years. And you let this garbage go on under your nose?" Dominic shot back. "You're done." Amber's composure snapped. She stormed over to Lena's desk, slamming her fists down so hard the ceramic mug rattled. "Oh, so you're better than us now, huh? Hiding behind your rich husband like a coward?" She spat the words like poison. "You fooled everyone, showing up in those cheap clothes, pretending to be one of us while we did all the real work." Her voice escalated to a scream, her fury unraveling. "I bet you laughed every time we mocked your pathetic life," Eli chimed in, desperation in his voice. "She's fake, probably slept her way into that marriage." The room recoiled. Even the spectators, silent until now, watched. With wide eyes as the attack spiraled, Lena didn't move. She stood still, serene even in the face of venom. But inside, the words stung. They always had. Dominic stepped forward, his presence like a wall. He raised one hand. Enough. His voice sliced through the chaos. You don't get to spin your own version of this just because you're afraid of the truth. My wife owes you nothing. Not her story, not her silence, not her patience. She's smart, she's kind, and she's worth more than anyone in this building has ever given her credit for. You spent months tearing her down, thinking she was fragile. But look at her. She's standing tall while you fall apart. He turned back to Lena, his tone soft with admiration. You don't have to say a word, love. It's over. They're finished. Lena met his gaze, her eyes shining, and gave a small, unshaken nod. Then the elevator chimed again. 2 security officers stepped out, their expressions unreadable. The room held its breath. Amber started sobbing. But the guards didn't hesitate. One by one, they escorted the 4 out, their protests echoing behind them as Dominic's words lingered in the air. You'll never work again. Not here, not anywhere. That's the cost of trying to break her. Mark muttered a curse under his breath. Jade frantically stuffed her things into her bag, while Blake just stood frozen, a shell of the manager he'd pretended to be. The rest of the office remained in stunned silence, watching the 4 of them get escorted out like criminals. Careers crumbled. Reputations gone in seconds. Dominic reached for Lena's hand, his grip steady, reassuring amidst the chaos he'd just unleashed. Let's go home, he said gently. She nodded, slinging her tote over her shoulder. As they stepped into the elevator, Lena turned for one last look, not at the people who had tried to break her, but at the others. The ones who said nothing, who watched and stayed quiet. Her gaze wasn't angry, it was calm, anchored in quiet resilience, a strength that stayed long after the elevator doors slid shut. The office buzzed for weeks afterward. Whispers turned into full-blown stories about the soft-spoken woman who turned out to be married to Dominic Walsh, the billionaire behind Walsh Global, a self-made mogul who built his empire from scratch. Amber tried to salvage her name with a teary-eyed post on LinkedIn, but no one bought it. Eli jumped from one dead-end job to another, his bravado deflated. Jade deleted all her social media accounts as her followers vanished overnight. Blake disappeared from the corporate scene completely, a ghost in the industry he once ruled. Lena never returned to Vertex. She didn't need to. She found fulfillment working freelance, lending her data skills to small businesses that couldn't afford big agencies. And she did it without ever compromising who she was. Dominic stood by her, always proud of the woman who never let cruelty define her. One quiet Friday evening, they sat on the balcony of their penthouse, overlooking the glittering skyline of New Harbor. Lena leaned into him, her worn tote replaced by a cozy, oversized sweater. You didn't have to ruin them, she said softly. They ruined themselves, Dominic replied, pressing a kiss to her forehead. I just made sure they felt the consequences. She smiled, her emerald eyes reflecting the city lights. She had faced the worst of people and come out stronger, not because of money, but because of who she was. And that was enough. If this story moved you, give it a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, drop a comment, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories of justice, dignity, and quiet strength. Thanks for watching.